You're going to be lucky to get an hour, hour and a half of sleep in that stop. Usually you're only going to get a handful of hours of sleep out on the trail if you're lucky. So sleep deprivation is one of the bigger battles on the trail, just as much as the cold is. Some of the chores that we're going to be doing while we're stopped, we're usually going to be cooking up a second meal for the dogs for when we're out on the trail. We're going to fill up our cooler. And then when we're ready to go, we're going to start bootying our dogs while they're still resting. This is a dog booty. So the most important piece of equipment we have. This is going to protect their feet from injuries. What happens when they run without booties is they release moisture from between their pads. So moisture mixes up with the snow and it creates little ice balls in their real sensitive webbing. So this will prevent those from forming. We'll wear these pretty much the entire time we're on the trail unless we're running on ice when we want their natural traction. And we are going to be crossing ice a couple times. Once outside of Rhone, we're going to cross a glacier. And once we get up here along the coast, we're going to be going across the sea ice. So we're going to change these out about every 40 to 60 miles or anytime they get wet. You can go through about 1,500 to 2,000 booties in a single Iditarod at about $2 a piece. So when you're out on the trail, it's not uncommon to see temperatures of 40 to 70 below. Look, the coldest ever recorded Iditarod, 1974, it got down to 132 degrees below zero with the wind chill. One of the mushers had a bottle of whiskey with him, and it was slush. It's pretty cold. So you got to have some pretty good gear when you're out there. We primarily use two different kinds of boots. The first part is your bunny boot. These are designed for going through overflow. Overflow is one of the nastier obstacles we're going to cross in these races. And it's when you have so much snow on top of the ice that it's too heavy, it cracks the ice, and water comes up and makes a nice nasty slush. These are designed so when you go through that water, if it goes over your boot, the boot's going to fill with water. It's going to warm that water up to your body temperature. It's probably the most uncomfortable boot you'll ever wear. I really am not a fan of these, but some mushers just swear by them. You of course got your moon boot, as I like to call it. It's a pretty big boot, right? Yeah. It's actually a men's size 8.
Oh my
It's not a
God.
very big boot. But they're pretty warm. They're pretty good to keep your feet warm down to about 20, 30 below. After that, you're not going to find much to keep your foot warm. So, they have these nice thick wool liners that are replaceable in case you do go through some surprise overflow and get your boots wet. That's if you can get off your boots. I like to freeze right back up and get a nice ice casing over your boot. I've seen guys have to get their boots chopped off at the checkpoint with an axe before.
Does not sound like fun to me.
Parka. One of the main features of these coats is this ruff right here. This is a wolf fur ruff. We use wolf fur because we haven't found a synthetic yet that can match what it does for us. That's going to protect our face from any wind and snow blowing in. But most importantly, it's going to collect our own breath when we exhale. That hot, wet breath, if you don't have something to stop it, it's going to come right back in your face and freeze you up pretty quick. And it can be real dangerous. There was a guy, Ed Eaton, back in about 2002, one of the veterans of the race, is going through a section of the trail called the Dazzle Gorge right here in the heart of the Alaska Range. It's one of the more technical stretches of the trail. There's open water and tree stumps and rocks and all kinds of things you have to avoid or bust up your sled or get yourself wet. So there was a blizzard when Ed was going through the gorge, and the winds were so strong that they ripped the ruff right off his hood. So all he had to protect his face was his goggles. And all that snow blowing in his face and breath collecting on the goggles froze him up pretty quick to a point where he couldn't see. Well, to be able to navigate the gorge, you had to have a sight, so we took him off and threw him in the sled bag. Well, he made it out of the gorge just fine, but by the time he made it to a checkpoint, he had completely frozen his corneas and had gone blind. He had to drop out of the race. Somebody had to help him into the checkpoint.
Did he ever recover his sight?
Yep, yeah, it comes back. Sure, it's quite the painful experience, but he can see now.